You are listening to the Two and Out CFL podcast, a proud member of the Canadian Football Podcast Network.
How many times have I said granted in the first 9 minutes of this?
And you just named the podcast, making my job easy, buddy.
Oh, man.
Grab some poutine and a double-double. It's time for the Two and Out CFL podcast.
Now they have to kick it out, and they do!
Every week, Travis Currah.
Does anybody still care about this podcast?
And Brazilian Ty.
Hunters are people, too.
Talk fantasy football, bring you the latest in CFL news, and sprinkle in a little bit of nonsense.
Are you kidding? This is unbelievable!
Ready, set, hunt!
And we are a part of the Alberta Podcast Network, locally grown, community supported. I'm Travis Currah. He is Brazilian Ty. And I know in today's culture, we like callbacks. And I want to call back to an episode last week where Brazilian Ty said, I'm never betting on football again.
Uh-huh.
And Saturday night, Brazilian Ty is showing me his bets, $100 on the Montreal Alouettes and $100 on the Calgary Stampeders.
Uh-huh.
That didn't last long.
No, it did not. I also bet my supervisor $100 because he's a diehard Rider fan. I'm like, there's no way they're winning. There's no way they're winning this game. There's no way. And so Saturday night, I had packed all my stuff to drive back to Lloyd today. And I'm sitting there looking at my phone. I'm like, I'm losing one of these bets. Right? And I'm like, I can't compound the issue and lose $200 on the Stamps. So I cashed out the Stamps bet and put another $100 on the Leafs -1.5 at better odds than what I got it for earlier that night. And then they ended up winning tonight, so I won $500 on that.
Okay, so there has been times this season where
I've sworn off betting on football. Oh, hard on the Riders, yes.
Well, that too. You've been hard on, Jason Moss, Nick Marshall. Now, does losing those bets make you hate the Stampeders, or does it make you hate the Riders more?
If you've known me for how long, Travis? Since grade 7?
Yeah, 7 or 8. So 19 years, 20 years.
You know in general that I'm not a happy person.
That's a fair assessment.
So if I have the chance to hate something more, I'm going to do that.
So you hate both teams more.
Yes. I'm just. You want another callback?
What's that?
Let's go back to the summer of 2018. Gibby in the visiting manager's office in, I believe it was Oakland. Okay, right now I have my feet up on my desk. I am leaning back in my chair and I have a huge dip in.
Now you just have to move into the closet.
I got no room in there. It's full of old clothes I'm throwing out.
This episode of Two and Out is brought to you by Park Power, your friendly local utilities provider in Alberta, offering internet, electricity, and natural gas with low rates, awesome service, and profit sharing with local charities. Winter is coming. Apparently, I mean, it has, and then it left, but it's going to come soon, and then it's going to stay.
It already showed up in Mount Robson Provincial Park.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine, man. Energy usage for all Albertans will be increasing, so now's a great time maybe to look at your utility bills and ensure that you're on the best plan. Albertans who have a choice, they do have a choice who they pay their utility bills to, so Park Power is happy to provide free, no-obligation comparisons. If you decide to switch providers, it is easy, and you can feel good knowing you're supporting a local business and helping give back to our communities with your utilities bills. Learn more at parkpower.ca. All right, Ty, let's start with that Eastern semifinal. The Hamilton Tiger Cats home to the Montreal Alouettes, and they live to fight another day by winning 23-12. I got to say, after the first quarter, Montreal controlled.
That was exactly what Montreal wanted.
Exactly. They played the perfect road quarter, you know?
Yeah, one quarter.
Yeah, that's it.
Some questionable decisions later.
Like
2nd and 8 running the football. Like, why? Now you're just giving up and you're punting.
They controlled the ball for more than 11 minutes that quarter. Mm-hmm. And the Eastern nominee for MOP was a non-factor.
All day. But I shouldn't say all day. I mean, he did have 12 carries. Like, that defensive front for Hamilton just absolutely shut down the running game for Montreal. Like, they just could not get anything going. And it seemed like in the first quarter that they were just going to pound it no matter, like, take their 2 or 3 yards on first down and just try to wear down the defense that way. And, I mean, you're only handing the ball off to him 12 times. They just abandoned it. Granted, I mean, the score had a lot to do with that. But, with Dylan Wynn and Hauser and Jaguar Davis and Ted Laurent, you're going to just give them free rein to pin their ears back. They're going to wreak havoc in that backfield. Not only that, and they did, and force turnovers. And, I mean, Masoli didn't have to play lights out. His defense gave him great field position basically the entire first half.
Yeah, and I just noticed that Montreal was working with a long field a lot of the time, and that's not good for an offense on the best of days. And when you're going against that Tiger Cat defense, that they're going to force you to make mistakes. And Mondo said it at the beginning of the year: you hit Trevor Harris, he's going to fold.
Yep.
Well, now they're teammates again.
Yeah.
And that Hamilton defensive line was all over him.
Yeah, they didn't have to watch film. They just had to, watch interviews. Right? Like, I mean, the long field is good if you can, you can use it to kill time, and all you got to really do is get to midfield if you're going to play that field position game, which looked like what Montreal was willing to do. I mean, perfect road situation, right? Kill as much time as you can. They got points early, granted not a touchdown, but they had the chance to kill clock, and they just folded in that second quarter. By halftime, it just felt like that game was over.
20-3 at half for the Ticats. 3 fumble recoveries, all defensive linemen for the Ticats. Dylan Wynn, Ted Laurent, Julian Hauser, and that was a big, big play with a 45-yard return after recovering the fumble. The big defensive lineman looked like he was looking for oxygen after that one.
Oh, I was tired listening on the radio. Hats off to RJ Broadhead, one of the best broadcasts I've heard all year, radio-wise.
Nice.
I mean, not as good as friend of the show Marshall Ferguson, obviously. I don't think anybody will ever be that good. But
man, you know what? He's young too. That Marshall Ferguson in 40 years. Oh,
Marshall and Dustin are going to be your 1-2,
and I'm okay with that.
I am 100% okay with that. But yeah, when the defense is, when the defense is basically scoring points, giving you 20 yards to score a touchdown, and you're just shooting yourselves. Hamilton was handing Montreal this game in the first quarter with the roughing the passer penalties, and Hamilton, their left side of the secondary was all out of position, and Delicate was playing over there, and they had the backup safety and that safety, so they're kind of playing out of position. So they started picking on that left side, and then they just kind of went away from it. And granted, I'm sure that had a lot to do with the defensive or the defensive line just getting to do whatever they wanted. You wouldn't have known looking at that second quarter that Montreal had 2 all-stars on the offensive line.
Yeah. And they've re-signed.
How many times have I said granted in the first 9 minutes of this.
And you just named the podcast, making my job easy, buddy.
Oh, man.
But yeah, you're right. When Hamilton's first touchdown of the game was a 22-yard drive,
Yeah.
if you even want to call it a drive. It was just the pass to Brandon Banks, who, you know what? At times this season, he's done nothing, but the last few weeks, he's making the plays that really matter. Mm-hmm. And when you're taking advantage, yeah, you just take advantage of turnovers.
Yep.
And when you do that, those just they hurt so much more. And Banks had himself 5 catches for 58 yards. That was enough to lead the Ticats in receiving yards.
Did you notice who he scored this touchdown on? Patrick Levels. Oops.
And that makes sense because I did see them talking.
Karma is a bitch, isn't it?
Mazzoli, 18 of 28, 184 yards and a touchdown. And the most important thing is what is not on that stat sheet.
Yep.
And it is a turnover. Because I look at Hamilton's drive chart. And look, there are a lot of punts there.
5. Oh no, sorry. Those are only 2 and out. Sorry, yeah. Their first 3 drives are punts.
Touchdown, field goal. Then you had 5 consecutive punts, field goal, safety, and then the game's over. But you put that with Montreal's punt, fumble, interception, punt.
Those are consecutive. Those are consecutive, by the way. That was 2 through 7. Their drive number 2 through drive number 7 went punt, fumble, interception, punt.
What a mess.
And then a touchdown.
What a mess.
Then a touchdown. And then 4 straight punts and a turnover on downs.
And a fumble.
Yeah.
Like it could have been, they could have got absolutely crushed.
Yeah.
But Hamilton's offense, they've struggled a little bit at times, and you're totally right. Tunde Adeleke had to move from safety because Keontae Evans didn't play, and before the game, I kind of thought that
I was excited.
Gino was going to be all over that, and he did have a 100-yard game, but it just wasn't enough at all for that Ticat defense.
No, and I mean, the running game getting shut down, when you become a one-dimensional offense, it makes it even that much easier for the defense. When they're dropping 8 guys, or they have the ability to drop 8 guys and then get home with their front 4, I mean, what else are you going to do? Like, you have to throw the ball once you're down by 17, and there's not a lot of options when there's that many guys back in coverage. Yeah.
I just wonder what's going to happen next week, and
we're it's just lining up for a rematch, isn't it?
It looks that way, and I just can't see the Ticats going back to Toronto and performing like they did in that battle for first place a few weeks ago.
No, not after a big. It's not like they absolutely destroyed Montreal. Like Montreal made a game out of it. But the first 3 drives, punting on all those, and then something clicked or they figured something out, and the offense got a little bit of momentum. And I know, it's tough to carry momentum when you don't play for another week, but they can take something from that into next week. And I think Montreal's defense is better than Toronto's, right? Just because Montreal was they had kind of just gelled it the last 6-7 weeks of the season, and they were playing really, really well. And Toronto seems inconsistent. So, I mean, if Hamilton plays just a little bit better than this, and maybe they capitalize on a couple of drives and walk away with field goals instead of punts, I just don't see how Toronto can keep up with them if the offense carries this over.
It's you just have to I don't know how you limit the Ticats defensive line. At the beginning of the year, they had some injury issues, and they weren't at full strength. But as the season has went on, and I think we saw this in the Saskatchewan-Calgary game, maybe it takes this long to shake off the rust of having an entire year of football off.
Yeah.
But the good teams really look like, to me, like they should have for most of the season. You know what I mean? The entertainment factor in the Montreal-Hamilton game wasn't what it was in the Calgary-Saskatchewan game.
In the second half of the Calgary-Saskatchewan game. That's
true. It still had the intensity cranked up, and clearly Patrick Level's talking the way he did. The Ticat defense was going to show him that they weren't gonna budge at all.
No, but I mean, what is he supposed to say? Like, oh no, we're going to go in there and we're not going to win.
We're not going to go in there and lose.
No, you play to win the game.
Yep.
Now, I don't know how much bulletin board material is really a factor, especially come playoff time. Like, it's win or go home. Everybody knows that. I don't think you need added motivation. But it's just a bad look. And then he's chirping fans in pregame. It's like, oh, man, you better show up.
Yeah.
And then he gets burned by Banks.
Yep. If you look at the stats, like the Alouettes, 24 first downs. The Ticats only needed 16.
Wow.
But the Ticats also outrushed the Owls, and that was the key.
The Donnaissance.
For the Owls, if they could run the ball, they were going to win.
Yep.
And they couldn't do it.
No, and the way that, like you said, that if they could have ran the ball, they would have won. They didn't need. If they could have ran the ball and controlled the clock with that lead, and methodically moved down the field with the run and high percentage passes and quick routes, like you can't be throwing downfield because you don't have the time. I mean, they're going to kill clock, and Hamilton's going to have to. They're not going to be able to have long drives and play from behind like that. Right, like they're going to have to score quick.
Exactly.
If Montreal's able to control the clock, and they just couldn't get anything going, and then they just abandoned the run. It's just a perfect scenario for the Tiger Cats.
The person that had the longest rush for the Owls was Trevor Harris. It was a 10-yard rush.
Yep.
And the Owls overall had 2.9 yards a carry. And
hard to win like
that. Yeah, the Ticats weren't that much better running the ball, 3.3 yards a carry, and they had the same amount of carries. So it's not like they could really run it either, and it's not like their offense could really stay on the field either. So the Owls' defense, I think credit needs to go to them because, well, they did their job.
Yeah, like they got put in some tough spots too, right?
They did.
So,
they did.
Like, I mean, when a team's starting at your 21, you're basically giving up 3 points. Automatic.
Dylan Wynn, 2 sacks for Wynn, 1 sack for Hauser, 2 sacks for Davis, 1 sack for Santos Knox.
Apparently those guys get paid too.
Yeah, they did their job 100%. Now, where do the Alouettes go from here? They're not going to...
Vernon Adams Jr. is their starter next year. They're not re-signing Trevor Harris.
Yeah, and Vernon Adams Jr., I had higher hopes for him this year, and I know that the injury that ended the season, maybe right when he was starting to catch his stride. I really hope...
I think that the year off really just screwed with everybody.
Yeah. It was messing with his head. They talked about it on the broadcast a lot. His confidence wasn't there, and if they can keep Big Gino Lewis and, Jake Winicky and Quan Bray involved in the offense. And you know what? Even that Reggie White Jr.,
Yep.
that kid is it looks like if he sticks around the CFL, he's going to be able to have some success here.
Like,
But
we call Winicky touchdown Jake all the time. We don't even mention his second down conversions.
yeah.
Like
yeah.
this offense is going to be okay when Vernon Adams Jr. is back next year and healthy. I don't think they need to overhaul anything. Maybe I hate to say it, but like the offensive line, yeah, they had 2 All-Stars, but I mean, it showed just how good Hamilton's defensive line was. Maybe that needs to be addressed because they're in your division, right? You're going to have to play them 2 or 3 times. You're going to probably play them in the playoffs again, in the next year. Like, maybe that needs to be addressed, but I just don't see a huge overhaul coming. Like, as long as they can bring a lot of guys back, I think they're in great shape.
Well, and we saw today why home field matters. Like, if the Owls are able to be more consistent throughout the season and they finish in second, that's big.
Yep.
That's like they had a loss in September to the Lions. And then they lost by a field goal to the Argos. And then kind of after that, they go on a bit of a run. I know there were 2 Ottawa wins in there, and then they beat
Hey, you can only beat the teams in front of you. It's not their fault.
Yeah, and
But
a couple things here and there. If they host this game or the East final, like the East it's tight.
yeah, Montreal had a shot to host
Yeah,
next week.
yeah, they did.
But inconsistency killed them.
Yeah, and penalties like this season, there were so many times when they would just shot themselves in the foot with boneheaded penalties.
Yeah, and they did it again this week.
Yeah, they did.
So I don't know how you clean that up. I mean, we talked about it with the Eskimos, when Moss was the head coach and Edwards was taking 15-yarders every game.
It was endless.
It just seemed it didn't matter. Like, they fired Moss was gone, and it was still an issue. Chris Edwards was gone, it was still an issue. Like, I just think guys just are going to do it. I don't think it matters. They're going to happen. It just depends on what the refs kind of want to call that day too. And we can get into that in the next game. But I mean, like, Hamilton wasn't super disciplined early, and Montreal didn't take advantage of that. I mean, if you're not going to capitalize on chances when you get them, like on a 2nd and long, and you're getting an automatic first down for a roughing the passer, like you have to stay. Your offense has to keep going, has to sustain that drive. You have to make that cost Hamilton something.
Montreal gave up a football field worth of penalties, 12 for 115 yards. It's
not great.
You do that in the playoffs.
Yep.
That's not going to be done. They got smashed in the turnover battle, smashed in the penalty area, and there it was. Their garbage day is coming up tomorrow or Tuesday or whatever, and then they're going to be back at it in the spring. Let's go to this Western semifinal.
Oh,
is it safe to say it's the game of the year?
It's the half of the year.
Man, 30-33, the Saskatchewan Roughriders beat the Calgary Stampeders in overtime. I tell you what, man, November 28th in Regina, Saskatchewan, when at kickoff it's 1 degree, you will take that every day of the week.
Yeah, and twice on Sunday.
Yeah. Like, from what I gather, the West Finals are going to be a little bit different.
Yeah.
Negative double digits, maybe some snow flying.
Long bus trip.
Yeah. Can't, well, they might be able to rappel out of a helicopter. No? I don't know. Let's, So, while the first half, it wasn't the most exciting brand of football, it was chippy, especially at the end of the first half. Now, from what I gather, Duke Williams baited, at least according to Jonathan Moxey, who had the game of his life in this one, and it just wasn't enough for his team. Duke Williams was he was pulling a little bit of Cam Kelly here. Yeah.
Allegedly. Now I'm sure the stamps are going to go to the league.
Yeah. We'll see what the fines look like later this week.
We should say allegedly what Moxie told the TSN sideline reporters, and the DT and Luke reported it once they got the info, was that Duke spit in Moxie's face just before the half, and that's why Lemon lost his ish. So now, if the refs didn't see it, I mean, I didn't get to watch the game. I was on the road, but I'm assuming it was a pretty big kerfuffle with Lemon trying to get to Fajardo and all that crap. As you know, Sean Lemon does. I'm totally okay with that. Like, you never know when they're going to fake. So lots of bodies in and around, and if Duke did spit in Moxie's face and it got missed because there's just too many people, I get that. But I mean, to go after him like Lemon did, I mean, you gotta realize that you're not helping your team at all.
Well, he's a veteran.
Yeah, you got to be smarter than that. I mean,
he was very.
You lose Lemon, and your field goal kicker misses arguably the greatest field goal kicker of all time in the CFL. Statistically, he misses 3 field goals, and Sean Lemon gets kicked out.
Yeah,
making it really tough on yourself to win a playoff game.
Lemon. He's been in the league for a long time, and he was a key member of that defensive line.
Yep.
Just crazy situation on a kneel down, and I mean, clearly the teams don't like each other.
No.
It was crazy. Last week, I thought the kickers might have been the difference in this game, and in a way they were. But I maybe thought that there would be a lot of punts going back and forth. Like, it wasn't a clean football game.
No.
There was 8 turnovers. But it was entertaining.
There was 5 picks in the first half.
Yeah. Yeah, it was going all over the field, and the Riders had a missed field goal return for a touchdown get called back due to a penalty. And you're throwing a look.
That's a penalty.
It is a penalty, but like when you see it's number 30 and you see it's the kicker.
Yeah, you don't need
probably
that. This is 2014 all over again.
Yeah.
Now they said on the broadcast there, because I had TSN streaming, so I had the actual, I had Dusty and Suter over my Bluetooth, and they're like, well, his pads got in front. Like, he didn't hit him from the side or from behind. Like, his shoulder pads were in front. And I'm like, it doesn't matter if he's still running back towards his own end zone. So it's a penalty, and I get that it sucks and doesn't look good. And Rider fans, I can just imagine what the post game would have been like had they lost.
Right.
But I mean, yeah, it took points off the board, and not only that, it was a 14-point swing, really.
Yeah.
With the Moxie interception. So, I mean, the fact that Calgary didn't score more in that first quarter with the chances they had is ridiculous.
Yep. Well, and how big is it when, like, Paredes misses a field goal and then the return that actually happened, and the Stampeders' special teams coverage was the best in the CFL on punts.
5 yards on average. So basically just your bubble.
And see, this is why I still love the CFL game. The special teams, it truly matters. And there was a lot of talk about Calgary's special teams. Craig Dickinson has the special teams background. Mark Killam's been doing it for a long time in Calgary, and he got it on Killam today. And it was not only because of the return there, but what happened in the second half, which I don't know if they would have done if Sean Lemon didn't do what he did, because the Riders
No. I mean, when you're kicking off from Calgary's 50, you have to onside that.
Yep.
And I even texted you, regardless whether or not they recover that onside kick or not, that's the right call.
Yeah.
Because you're not really giving up that much in field position.
Absolutely.
But I mean, it was evident in that second quarter, I think it was, when they punted, when Calgary punted from the 40.
Yeah.
That Dickinson didn't have a lot of faith in Paredes anymore. Right after he missed the first one.
Off.
After he missed the first one, and it goes in the end zone.
Yeah. That was a big mistake.
You flipped 5 yards on that punt.
Yep.
I don't get it.
He missed from 48, 35, and 44. Yeah. Paredes had 8 field goal attempts.
Now, if that's the fourth quarter, and let's say it's a tie game or whatever, then and he's already missed those 3 kicks, then I get not trotting him out there for another field goal attempt.
Yeah,
but he'd only missed 1.
Yeah. And
I think I texted you and said, "What the AF?"
Yeah, you did.
I don't understand that call to not kick or not attempt the field goal. But I mean, the Riders took full advantage of that Lemon penalty by starting that second half with the onside kick, getting the recovery, and it just kind of snowballed from there.
And then scoring, and
they score, and it seemed like Calgary later in the game kind of got the crowd out of it.
When they were able to, they were running with Carey.
Yeah.
And they wore out the defense, it looked like. They gave him 22 carries. He had 117 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's getting over 5 yards a carry.
Once they started moving the ball like that, I was like, oh boy, here we go.
Yeah.
And the Riders just basically held on for dear life.
When they took a 21-20 lead late in the game.
Yeah. That place was pretty quiet on the radio.
It was. And I especially early in the game, it was that Rider offense where, oh boy.
Yeah.
And I actually thought that the Rider offensive line, it was one of their best performances all year.
Yeah.
There was a lot of times when Cody actually did have a lot of time, but again, when
Calgary plays a lot of zone.
And it seems like Fajardo's not the best against the zone.
No.
There's 8 guys in coverage and 4 receivers, and he wasn't able to pick it apart. Where
I don't know if that's necessarily his fault, though, either.
Right. Calgary's secondary is great.
And if Moss isn't going to make the adjustments to the zone for his quarterback that struggles against the zone, well, I don't know what else I don't know what else Fajardo's supposed to do, but he has to throw the ball because they abandoned the run.
Well, and that's it.
Or not abandon the run, but the run wasn't working all that well early.
Well, Powell, he had pretty much 5 yards of carry in the first half, and then in the second half, they weren't able to Calgary made some adjustments on the D-line, and then they weren't able to handle Mike Rose, and they weren't able to run the ball. But then Powell was able to, if Fajardo was on with some of the throws to Powell, without forcing him to reach out and fall over and all kinds of stuff, then Powell would have been able to make bigger plays there. But this game had absolutely everything.
100%. The only thing it didn't have, the only thing I'm disappointed in is Brett Lowther. He ran away from Pill Country after he nailed the walk-off.
That's probably a COVID fine from the CFL, but
Worth it. No, because with his luck, he'd have to be in quarantine next week or something. He'd be on the list.
yeah. Like this game was nasty, and I'll be honest, I wasn't sure if this Rider team had the grit.
Yeah, that's entirely fair
to do it, and I thought it was. I know Nick Marshall took that penalty. It was another one of those. He stepped out of bounds, but it's the playoffs. But he's always good for one of those kind of goofy penalties a game.
See the new Chris Edwards?
Watching Gainey and Marshall like in the backfield, those guys were limping around every play. Marshall took a helmet to the arm on one play. He was trying, like, it was a gutsy performance by them. Dion Lacey was all flying all over the place. And it was a gutsy performance by the offense.
And two, the Riders started 9 Canadians.
Wow.
So they were able to make any substitution they wanted for any package.
They were.
Like it's one of those things that kind of gets overlooked. They mentioned it on the game. Like, that's actually pretty smart.
They were making a lot of substitutions on offense. They had Awachi out there blocking, LaFrance out there blocking. They had Dupuis, the fullback, who made a nice play and a nice hurdle. They would put St. John out. Like, they were trying a lot to stop the Calgary defensive line.
Now, score aside, this game, I think, like you mentioned, it was chippy. I think that's exactly what we expected. These two teams don't like each other. It doesn't seem to matter if there's roster carryover or not.
It's their fourth game this year.
It's the fourth game. They played 3 times in 4 weeks. Like, that's going to breed some contempt. It's like a playoff series. And that's basically what it was. It was winner of that series was getting home field for this game, more or less. I think we expected the tensions to kind of boil over. I didn't think people would be getting kicked out. I thought guys would be a lot smarter. But I think that kind of just added to it. Like, I think that's exactly what we expected, the teams to come out and just beat each other to a pulp just to lose next week.
And I mean, there was the fumble that the Saskatchewan couldn't get out of bounds by,
Ed Gainey,
a millimeter. Yeah, what a play by Mayala to make that Calgary ball. Like, this had drama. It had Schaefer Baker. What a beautiful throw by Fajardo in overtime.
Oh, that was SJ Green-esque if he comes down with that.
I think maybe Schaefer Baker thought he was closer to the sideline than and it just shows
the end line,
how difficult it is to know where you are on the field with the sideline and where you are in space. And man, this overtime, this game, like I just don't know why. And I know the semifinal's always a tougher sell, but
it looked. I saw some shots and that north end zone looked pretty empty.
It was, and maybe it's the vaccine passport. Like, I don't think it's a coincidence that we saw attendance sharply drop off.
No.
After that, and I think people, they'll crap on Edmonton for not caring about their team, but I think I'll stick up for them a little bit.
I also don't blame them.
There was so much going on off the field that they weren't going to put up with. So
they sent a message and it was heard loud and clear.
Yeah, I don't think we can ignore that here.
No.
But this is, I think, a game that the CFL needed for entertainment value, and I'm curious to see what the ratings are going to look like. And that Western final, like, you thought that this one was chippy. I remember how Banjo Bowl went, and the West final is going to be just like that. Reggie Bagleton, he had over 100 yards. Man, there was that play. Was it overtime? I think it might have been.
Then where Nick Marshall was defending him?
Yeah,
in the front corner.
Ed Gainey, basically.
Yeah.
Well, Ed Gainey had to support him.
Yeah. Oh, that one. Yeah.
Yeah. As for the Riders, Man, I don't know. Something's wrong with Shaq Evans. I don't think he's completely healthy.
No.
There was the one interception.
Did you see?
Where,
have you seen Shaq Evans' stat line yet?
Yeah, I have. I'm looking at it. Oh, and they showed it on the screen. Like,
Holy Christ.
1 catch for -4 yards. Ooh, wow.
And they won.
Yep. And they won. Fajardo, 189 yards passing, 4 picks, a touchdown. Bo didn't have any touchdowns.
He even said it.
Threw 2 picks.
Fajardo even said it after the game. We're not supposed to win this game with 4 picks. Like, he knows it. They got lucky. The defense bailed them out.
Yep.
But I mean, that's what you have to, like, if you're going to win the playoffs, you got to win 2 or 3, and they did with that special teams return. Paredes missing 3 field goals. They won the special teams battle. They played really well. Like, especially in the first half, I thought their defense played really well because they were able to hold Calgary to, 8 points?
Yeah.
In the first half, when Calgary probably should have scored 21.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they won 2 out of 3, like we said they had to, and I even think we mentioned it on the preview, on the playoff preview, that, you know, this game is probably going to, like, special teams is going to play a huge factor in this game, and it did.
Yeah. Yeah. And by gutsy, I mean, Fajardo, he'll always have this defining drive in the fourth quarter, and it happened in this one. 9 plays, 75 yards.
Yep.
It's when he finally started throwing to Duke.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Duke had 5 catches on 5 targets, 3 catches in that drive alone. A 12-yarder, a 10-yarder, an 11-yarder. And those are the catches where, or those are the passes where Fajardo, I think, succeeds. And I don't know why it just happens in the fourth quarter, like why it doesn't happen.
It's like, we need to sustain a drive. We can't keep throwing the ball 30 yards downfield.
Yeah.
Like, if you just did this in the first 3 quarters, you could probably start running the football in the fourth and, you know, just sit on the ball and win the football game.
Maybe that's the genius of Jason Moss. He's building up to that one drive.
Don't.
And a big shout out, I think, one more to AC Leonard. I know he didn't get the All-Star nod, but hey, we were willing to give Andrew Harris the All-Star nod last year. And Leonard recovers the onside kick. He dropped back into coverage a few times, and he almost had an interception.
Yep.
Like, I know he was a tight end in college, made the switch over to defensive line, and what a year he's had.
He seemed to be in on every other play.
Yeah.
Whether it was, you know, taking blocks, dropping back in coverage, you know, like he said, he recovered the onside kick. Like, they said his name a lot on the broadcast. You know, and usually if they're saying a defensive player's name in the broadcast, it's one of 2 things. It's either he's getting burned continually or he's making plays and helping his team. And, you know, everybody crapped on him like, oh, just piss in the cup. That's all you have to do. Just do it.
Yeah.
Like, what are you hiding? And, you know, it was a big point of contention earlier this year, and I think he kind of made up for it, at least with his own fan base.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Deion Lacey, 12 tackles. Jonathan Woodard, the big tackle for a loss on 2nd and 1 later in the game. That might have been one of the defining moments of the game.
I think Saskatchewan has kind of shown the rest of the league what. And I mean, I don't think Bo's been healthy since he's come back, like at 100%.
No.
But they've kind of shown the formula you need to beat. Like, you got to get him moving and not let him set his feet, because every time he rolls out, his throws are so inaccurate that he's shooting himself in the foot.
The Riders are scrappy, and they're going to be scrappy against Winnipeg. 4 interceptions, not going to get it done.
No, but I think I don't think interceptions are going to be the problem next week.
I think that whoever won the West Semi, they go into Winnipeg with no pressure, though.
No, absolutely not. All the pressure's on Winnipeg.
They're expected to get crushed.
Yeah.
So I think Winnipeg has kind of shown that that stuff doesn't really bother them.
No.
But we'll see. We'll see. For Hamilton, Toronto, I mean, Braylon Addison was practicing this week. Maybe he gets on the roster against Toronto. And then Winnipeg, Saskatchewan. Two of the most intense, other than Calgary, Edmonton, Labor Day weekend battles.
Yep.
Now, those same teams are playing to go to the Grey Cup. It doesn't get better than that, man.
Dude, both division finals next week are Labor Day rematches. Like, they're Labor Day matchups.
Yeah, baby. Let's go.
Like, both teams hate each other.
Yeah.
I mean, there's going to be one Argo fan and 20,000 Ticat fans in BMO. I think we're set up. I don't think Hamilton's going to boat race Toronto by any means. I think that they win, but I think it's going to be a pretty good game, and I don't know if Saskatchewan can hang with Winnipeg for 4 quarters. I mean, if they're down going in the fourth, you got a tall order in front of you. Right.
They got to keep it tight up until then, and then I know Winnipeg has dominated the fourth quarter, but anything can happen. We are a part of the Alberta Podcast Network, locally grown, community supported. If you hit albertapodcastnetwork.com, you'll see all sorts of great shows to find something that interests you. If you're kind of a nerd like me, and that used to be an insult, I don't think it is anymore.
Nah. I'd say we're both kind of nerds in our own right.
Yeah, absolutely. Press start to join. Hosts Josh and Alan discuss video games, movies, TV, comics, Star Wars, and more. Check them out. They're part of the Alberta Podcast Network. I mean, we host a CFL podcast. We are pretty nerdy.
Cool. Dude, if people saw my spreadsheets...
Yeah, exactly. Press start to join. The boys love technology and gaming. If that sounds like something you like, they got a show every week. ps2jshow.com is the website to theirs. To be completely transparent, I'm in a 7-Eleven parking lot in Rosetown, Saskatchewan. I got a 480-kilometer drive to go to wrap up my semi-final weekend.
Oh, is this what we're doing? Right now, I am shopping for Team Canada curling jackets because Cousin Jules is going back to the Olympics.
Rate, review, and subscribe on your favorite podcatcher. We got a great start to the playoffs and a few weeks to go. We'll talk to you on Friday to talk about the division finals.
Thanks for listening. Find more great shows like this at CF Pod Network on Twitter.